Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to see another chapter reading from my upcoming book due out January 1st, Your Journey to Success. If you're interested, you can pre-order it on my website, www.coachkennyweiss.com. We learned last week that feeling that comes up for all of us when we want to do something, that it's part of something called our worst day cycle, and that we're all stuck in. And one of the byproducts of that is it's very difficult for most of us to say no. And whether that's in business to a client or especially in a relationship, we feel like we're a bad person or we're guilty. So I'm not going to read the whole chapter, it's too long, but I've cut it up in a way that I think will give you a general sense of why that is and how it's playing into the worst day cycle, so you can get a sense of how this book can help you overcome that. So let's get started. Because the worst day cycle has been going on for generations, we have all been raised codependently and enmeshed, which teaches us that we have to say yes just to fit in. That forces us to give away our true selves and our own needs and wants to try and get our parent or our caregiver to love and like us. It starts out as a simple survival coping skill, but as we grow into adulthood, it becomes a manipulative way we control others, and it sets up our own self-victimization. As my first marriage was ending, I began seeing a counselor. He noticed pretty quickly I didn't know how to say no, and that I would impulsively say yes to things. So he gave me an assignment. He said, Kenny, for the next week, I don't care what it is. I want you to first say no to any question. I want you to say no without even thinking about it. Then take some time, think it over, and if you decide it's something that works for you, after that, go ahead and say yes. Well, I left that appointment and went straight to dinner. As the waitress approached, she did what they always do. Hi, would you like some water to start? I began to shake. And with a ton of trepidation, I kind of meekly replied, no. I felt this chill run through my body, and I was like, oh my God, I've never done that. And when she went away and came back, returned, I said, you know what? I thought about it. I'd like some water. That poor girl, I had her running back and forth all night. She was like, when is this guy ever going to say yes to something? I left her a huge tip. But saying no changed my life. It changed my business. It taught me that yes can be the most unloving and codependent thing we ever say to anyone. Every client that I work with has to learn to say no too. It's a universal struggle. Even the type A personality types, they tend to say no a lot, but it's usually to control others, and it's based on a fear of intimacy. They don't want to be known. It's not out of a genuine need to say no. They use no to create distance and false power. When I ask my more relaxed type B clients to begin saying no, I often hear them say, I can't do that. I'll feel guilty. I don't want to be mean. What they're really saying is something entirely different. Subconsciously, they want to make the other person feel guilty to gain the victim power of the worst day cycle, but they just aren't aware of it. That's what saying yes gives you. The worst day cycle thrives on that powerlessness and the resulting self-victimizing false power. Here's what's really going on subconsciously, what they're really thinking. If I say yes to this, I can make the other person eventually feel guilty. I can say, can you believe all I've done for Susie and she never appreciates it? She owes me. How many times in our life have we had that conversation with our friends? For me, it's been countless times. Saying yes to things we want to say no to is an attempt to manipulate the other person to like us or get something in return from them. When we don't get it, We then cry, victim. That's why saying yes isn't loving. Until we overcome our worst day cycle and learn how and when to say yes appropriately, saying yes is manipulative and self-victimizing. I know precisely the day my second marriage died. It's the day I stopped saying no. Until that point, I'd been practicing a confrontation model that that same counselor had taught me. And here's what that model includes. You start off by using I statements and sharing what you observed. From that, you share what you make up or your judgment about what you're observing. Then you share how you feel about what you're observing and basically judging. If needed, you make a request from the other person to see if they'd consider making a change, or you just ask for more information. Since we're using judgment about what we're observing and we can't get inside somebody else's head, asking for information usually clears things up. If we do make a request, the final and most important step is to celebrate their no. Because if they're loving themselves authentically, it means they're loving you and they're not manipulating you by saying yes to something. Well, one day, while I was using the confrontation model with my wife in the kitchen, she blurted out, "Would you stop being so goddamn boundaried and just really tell me what you think and feel?" I was sitting at this high-top kitchen table. It was a Sunday morning. I clutched my breath and I remember looking up at the ceiling. You know, that popcorn texture? I stared at it and paused. You ever notice how the massive kernels just sit suspended above you like a torrent of hailstones just waiting for the right conditions to explode? My response to her question would determine whether the two of us would be battered by that hail. As I stared at the hail trapped in the ceiling, I felt tremendous fear. I briefly contemplated the thought of not giving her what she asked for. I told myself, Kenny, don't do it. Don't do it. She's just scared. You need to be strong for her. You need to be strong for both of us. But I wanted her approval. I wanted her to like me. I wanted to please her. I remember thinking, wouldn't the loving thing be to give her what she wants? Shouldn't I say yes? So I did. I dropped that confrontation model and I gave her all of it. For the next 5 years, I spewed it all without a filter. Everywhere we went, every conversation and every activity, I released an avalanche of hail upon us both. Like a buffalo winter. No matter how fast you shuffle, the snow falls faster, covering whatever path you had dug out the day before. Our marriage died that day, but it took me several years to realize it. That one little yes turned into countless more. The accumulation of those little yeses resulted in me returning to drinking after 20 years of sobriety. A big escalation in my sex addiction and me allowing myself to pursue a professional golfing career she wanted for me that left me completely dependent on her financially and emotionally. I was once again deep into my worst day cycle. Another devastating consequence was the distance that slowly and imperceptibly began to creep into the marriage. The word yes creates that. About a year before our marriage ended, I attempted one last time to say no to her. We met with that same counselor, the man who had originally taught me about boundaries and the value of saying no after my first marriage. When we first started dating, she began seeing his wife. She was also a counselor, and she helped my ex-wife, learned the exact same skills. We married in part because we learned to speak the same language and share the same ideals that we'd learned from them. In short, my wife learned how to say no as well. Well, in that meeting, I asked her to end an inappropriate relationship and an emotional affair she was having with her business partner. She replied no. She said the word no, already knowing the power of no. I thought I would leave in that instant, but I couldn't. All of my little yeses had skewed my feelings and thinking so badly that I was now addicted to and imprisoned by the relationship and my worst day cycle. I had no power and no safety. I could see no way out, just like when I was a child. That's what saying yes does. It caused me to lose touch with who I am, and as I saw it, my sanity as well. The final straw came when I was laying in the sun enjoying a peaceful respite from the inner turmoil, when out of nowhere a feeling and a picture started to form in my brain and body. I saw and felt this emotional tsunami coming towards me. You can't outrun something like that. It's just too big. It's too powerful. So you just succumb. As I laid there in the crucifying Arizona sun, I was being enveloped in the coldness of the emotional wave that was inside my heart and mind. After 3 or 4 days of being dragged across the empty landscape inside me, I called her. I hadn't seen her in 2 months. She was living and pursuing business in another state with the business partner that she was having the emotional affair with. I told her, you have to come home. I don't think there's anything you can do for me to help me, but I need someone around, or I'm going to have to get to a psych ward in a hospital. I need help. She came. A few months later, she made a choice that exploded her business partnership and the relationship as well. For a brief period, she turned back towards me, but I knew it was only because she was afraid after losing them both. But I couldn't verbally say no to her. So instead, I used my sex addiction to communicate my no. When I'm in my worst day cycle, it's the best that I can do. She said no to my behavior, and we were formally separated shortly thereafter. The resulting withdrawal was severe, and I contemplated suicide. I have suffered tremendous physical and emotional trauma in my life. Nothing compared to this. In retrospect, my choosing to drop my boundaries in the kitchen was manipulative, was abusive to us both. My saying yes was an attempt to extract love from her. I wanted to make her like me so I could feel better. That's my job. It's not hers. Conversely, her unwillingness to give up her emotional affair was incredibly loving. She told me exactly what was important to her. She was authentic to herself and to me. That's love. She was telling me that the marriage no longer held a priority in her life, that her business and this other person now did. I chose to ignore her honest rejection of the marriage, and in the process, I further victimized us both. Well, I once again say no a lot now. I've learned how loving it is to me and to you. So there's a bit of chapter 8. If you struggle with no or know somebody who does, the rest of it, there's more detail. It'll really help you. So once again, if you're interested in the book, just head to my website, www.coachkennyweiss.com. You can pre-order it now. We're in the midst of taping the audio portion. So just keep an eye out. We'll do another reading next week. And If you like what you're seeing, make some comments. But I appreciate you watching. Have a great day.